Okay, I guess we'll start. My I switch around program once in a while to be able to have people use their brains a little bit. I changed the meaning of what we're doing, and none of these words belong together. None of these words they're not together. They're not with us in this plan today. Oh, excuse me, because they have relationship to one another. So it's a totally different program today, but it's based on the source of some of the words and the meaning of the words and where they come from. And also, when you use these words, you are really going way out of the territory of information that you would be looking for. So the first word is Mzingan. I spelled it's not spelled right on this one.
C instead of C?
Yeah, D instead of C. Mzingan. That letter was born as a result of having to sign something because you owed something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Mzingan is the word you're going to go and owe money on something. And because it was written down on a piece of paper, the paper became the Mzingan. And
is there a better word maybe for just paper that represents or describes it more accurately?
What about like birch paper or scrolls or something like that? Is it
you could probably say a different word. However, it wouldn't be recognized.
No, yeah.
It wouldn't be recognized as something different because it's been used through what people understood this to be. This represents.
Yeah. And adopted into main speech.
Yeah, yeah. So Zhibiiganaak. Zhibiiganaak is another word. It means make a line, and somebody used it at the beginning when they were pointing at a map on a wall and making marks on the map on the wall. So then when they were going like that and like that, that's what that is. Zhibiiganaak. This instrument here is one that makes the marks. So that's what they're called, the Zhibiiganaak. It's pen or pencil. It isn't called anything that what you write with or that you print with or that you draw with. It's a totally different meaning on anybody that's very knowledgeable of the language. When you're very knowledgeable of the language, you know that none of these words fit into what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
You just know, and in that way, you also understand that there's going to be other words that have no reference to the picture you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And using the word, the word develops over time, and after a while, when you see the picture, you'll be able to know the word. That's basically backwards to what we're usually learning. Bebiigwaapkaawn Bebiigwaapkaawn is got the two humps on the back. That's what Bebiigwaapkaawn. I used to have an uncle. That had a humpback, and they called him Bebiigwaapkaawn.
Okay.
And he didn't mind. He just went along with it. But that was the way that you remembered him intentionally. Is if somebody said Bebiigwaapkaawn, you pictured him right away, and so forth. It also told you that to be referred to as what you look like when somebody stared at you or looked at you, there was nothing wrong with being called. We did not get insulted until we learned the word of being insulted through a different language. That's when we became insulted. A lot of times today, some people will come up and say, well, how come you're kind to that person? He's not a very kind person. And I said, well, I know what kindness is. That's why I can be kind to somebody. Maybe he doesn't know what kindness is. And I said, I have to leave him room for that. And it's very hard for me to be insulted then. I mean, you have to really try pretty hard for me to be insulted. Because most of the time, if you're trying to come after me, you're doing something to yourself, not me. And so that's, once I learned that, I mean, in this world nowadays, holy catfish, people are getting insulted by looking at them as they're going by, They had literally stopped the car and said, come up to you, and what are you looking at,
Oh, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Now I'm looking at you. I had a biker, just a couple of weeks ago, I had a biker say, what the hell are you looking at? I looked at him right in the eye and I says, nothing. And he said, oh, and walked away. He didn't get it. He didn't get what I was ready to.
Yeah.
Wshtigwaanes. Wshtigwaanes usually means the head. It does, but in this case, it does a lot more than that. Nowadays, today, most chiefs, most council members do not know what a Wshtigwaanes is. Wshtigwaanes is our treaties. Wshtigwaanes is treaty. If we can talk about the politics of our land and everything, and they will say, "That's a treaty. Monday should be got them on the treaty." The old people, when they talk about, they would say, "That's a Wshtigwaanes monty. Me Monday should be got them on the Wshtigwaanes." They would be, everybody around the table would have understood what they were saying. Today, very few people in a table would understand what Wshtigwaanes is. The first thing we ever saw when they talked about treaties was the stamp on a piece of paper, and the stamp was done with a medallion sort of thing, and they stamped the paper to let you know that it was we were working with Prince George of England, and the medallion had the head picture of George. So Anishinaabe people, they always talk through a relationship. They would say Wshtigwaanes wanda.
So if you were talking about wampum, that's not the kind of treaty that this means. You're talking about Europeans, treaties signed with Europeans because of that medallion.
Yeah. Most of our treaties are legitimized by that stamp. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, because because of the way I was raised, and because of who raised me, I would not know any of these things I'm putting down. Because I was raised by an inherited chief, and most people don't even remember what an inherited chief was. And but you were raised from the time you're 15. You were raised to be a chief because you inherited the chieftainship and so forth. Yeah. So so that's why I'm using some of this to get you to wrap your mind around certain things to have a different understanding that sometimes the word that you know has another meaning on top of that. So, Wdaabaan. Wdaabaan is a car or a truck. It's a word that we got from the French or the Germans, where they pointed at the road, Audubon, Audubon. They pointed at the road and it went Audubon, and there used to be a car going by. And so, oh, Wdaabaan. But the people that were pointing it out and everything, they were speaking out of language. They were saying road. the place of travel in some languages, and so the car or the truck became the road.
I thought it was maybe like drive from wagon or something like that.
Yeah.
I think what word would have been close. Interesting.
Yeah, they added on to truck. Truck is referred to as Wdaabaan, the thing that hauls things.
Okay.
Niizhoodenhyak is twins. Niizhoodenhyak, those that crawl together. Little twins always crawl together when they're this big together. Maybe it meant when they were coming out they crawled together too. I don't know. But as kids, they travel together. They crawl together around. So anytime there's twins in a family, you call them Niizhoodenhyak. Either girls or boys, or Niizhoodenhyak. Abinoojiinhs. See this? There's another little area. J. Yeah.
This was Pasqua, just so you know.
Yeah.
Blame it on him.
Abinoojiinhs. Again, I think I told you already. I try to tell most people what it means so they remember it really well. Abe means it just lays there. Just lays there, abe. No jeans, he makes everybody busy. Just because he sits there, because all he does is sit there or lie there, he makes everybody busy. Abe no jeans. That's a good way of that you can, when you learn that word, you also know about 3 or 4 other words. When you hear them in a relationship, you will understand that they are talking about someone staying very still or someone just sitting there, or else you can say the car is sitting up front. It's just sitting there.
Would you call someone who's being lazy this?
I've been called that a few times. Guchaman Pigadawa, Guchaman Pua, but you know, I've had bosses tell me, Lorney, what are you doing standing around here? Because there's no place to sit. Yes, I've actually done that. You can get fired for that. And I said, well, go ahead, fire me. Then I'll be able to sit around all I want.
Yeah.
Waasechigan. Waasechigan. It means something shining in. When there's a window, light shines in. If there was no window, the light wouldn't shine in. So it has to do with something shining in. Waasechigan. A lot of these names, they imply something outside of the immediate area of what you're looking at. The most interesting one is Mzhiikenh. Mzhiikenh. Mzhiikenh is the word itself means laying bare. The turtle, he cleans the bottom of the creek, off of a lot of objects, so that the water and medicine will grow a lot in the water. The Mzhiikenh looks after the herbs in the water. There's Mzhiikenh, there's Bebiigwaapkaawn. There's all kinds of herbs that come from water. And the turtle is the one that looks after those medicines. And even on land, in the creeks and that, the turtle is the one that goes and looks after those things. His poop is very, very, very powerful in that it helps things grow in the water. So that's why Mzhiikenh. We do special ceremonies for Mzhiikenh, and when we do a really strong ceremony, what we usually do is we watch where the water is flowing. If the water is flowing, if we were going to do a ceremony and we know that Junction Creek in Sudbury, downtown Sudbury, Junction Creek, all the water comes from there, it'll flow right by Pigeon Mountain where we do ceremonies. So a lot of times what we will do is we will get someone that lives in the area of Junction Creek to put together a bundle and in the water, so that all the area is saturated with the gift of Thanksgiving. And those people we did that lots when I was a kid. Like even when we finished eating beaver, we would collect all the bones. And I was the little guy. I was 4 years old, so I was the one that had to go out into the bush and bring the bones in the bush and hang them up in trees all over, so that the cycle would continue. Other birds would come and the cycle would go round and round, and so forth. He didn't. That's why we didn't have any garbage when the settlers came here. We had no garbage because everything was used right to the end. And they had people that came here had already destroyed the whole area of Europe with their garbage. And when they came here, there was no garbage. In the water, clean water, and everything. So those are some of the things that I learned as a boy from my grandparents. See? So Mzhiikenh. I use that word on purpose. Mzhiikenh today means the bad boy. The boy is bad. The original meaning of Mzhiikenh is Mzhi, meaning comes from somewhere. Mzhiikenh. And when you translate the whole word, you can say Mzhiikenh, Mzhiikenh. You can put a whole bunch of words into Mzhiikenh, Mzhiikenh, Mzhiikenh. You can say all those words, and it means when you look at that right now, the learned boy, that's what it's supposed to mean. But today it means a bad boy as a result of English. The nature of the wording, the wording in English, you judge a boy that's getting into something bad and so forth. So what you're saying is the boy is bad. A long time ago, when you saw something like that, you said, what you are looking at comes from somewhere. You got that from somewhere. There is nothing wrong with that.
Offensive. A lot less rude.
A lot less rude and a lot less. You're not tainting the whole boy.
There's a gift there. Yeah.
Yeah. He's seen something and he's copying it. And he's seen something and he's copying it. And that's the real meaning of that, because a long time ago you were not in a position to be able to look at another person and compare or say they're bad.
Mhm.
You were not supposed to do that. And so we use Mzhiikenh, meaning that person is having a bad experience because he's not experiencing his experience. He's experiencing somebody else's experience.
Mhm.
A lot of the a lot of the nature of our language and the way that we look at life. There is not one word in English in Ojibwe that you could put a label on a human being. Even crazy here, a couple of people, modern people today that are elders, they try to argue with me, and they say, no, that means he's crazy. I said, no, not at all.
Mhm.
It means he doesn't really belong anywhere
Mhm.
because he's special.
Mhm.
He is not of the nature to be around. And no, it means he's crazy. I said, there can absolutely not be a word such as that,
Mhm.
as there is no way that you can judge another person in that way, because there's nothing wrong with him. It's what he's looking at that makes him that way.
Mhm.
Because before the arrival of Zhibiiganaak, someone that was a little different in the manner he lived, he was considered gwiiwzenhs, and he's the one that looked after the kids because he had childlike innocence. So he was the one that was looked after all the kids in the community. That was his job. And as a result of being special with the kids and everything and playing with the kids all day, he never ended up in an insane asylum, or he never killed or hurt anybody, and because he was so busy looking after the kids all over. So before that, there was no, insane place, a place for the insane or anything like that. As long as people were looking at him and says, you could be going through something in your life, and or depression and stuff like that, and you would be gwiiwzenhs. You would have to be alone someplace to be able to get your senses back, so forth. So those are some of the meaning of the words and where they come from, and they don't belong in our language. But when we do understand the real meaning of what they are, they actually mean to change the behavior of the boy. By changing the meaning in your head of the word you're using, you change the picture of what you're looking at, and the picture changes. That's basically how, like when we take early childhood development and everything, that's how I was able to change how I thought of myself and how I thought of somebody. I didn't get as angry as other people, and so forth. People used to say, "Lorney, how can you walk away from a fight all the time?" And I said, I'm usually when I'm ready to get into a fight somewhere, I'm usually going home to get a stick or something to hit the person with. And I said, didn't they know that? It actually happened when I was drinking when I was younger. I must have been about 24, I guess. And there was one guy really had a real hate on for me. And I went into a hotel in town, and he came in there and he tried to start a rumble with me. And he had about 3 or 4 guys with him, so he was really being multi with me. And so I don't know. I said, he says, come on outside. And I said, well, yeah, I am going outside. I'm going outside to go somewhere else. And he says, don't be a smart ass. I said, well, I'm telling you the truth. I got somewhere to go. And he says, well, come on out and fight. And I said, no, I don't want to fight. I said, take off. And I just walked away. And he continued. He followed me to the next place.
Mm.
And he wanted to fight again. And so finally got me mad about the third time. He got mad at me and I said, okay. I said, that's it. I said, okay, that's it. I'm out of here. I went to walk towards the door. And he says, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going to go and get something. And he says, well, are you coming back? And I said, yeah, I'm coming back. And, he didn't understand. And then all of a sudden he got really scared.
Mhm.
I said, because somebody told him what I had said. People usually get coward when you're walking away. But I said, I hope nobody says I'm a coward because I'm walking away. Because you don't know when I'm coming back. You don't know what I'm coming back with. And usually when I'm walking away, I'm going to get something. And I guess somebody told him that, so he kind of, I think I got him. Is there any questions on this with Susan or anybody? These words?
Just wanted to say thank you. When I first saw the words, I was thinking, how can we use these words? But then after you explain the meaning, it makes sense. How broad the meaning is. It's not a literal translation. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think the way that I'm trying to, because we use pictures to be able to speak the language, I'm trying to teach how to look at the pictures. Basically, that's what somebody told me. All you got to do is show people how to look at the pictures, and they'll be able to remember the words, and so forth. So that's
Is it Zhibiiganaak? Not
Zhibiiganaak, yeah.
Yeah, I don't picture this. I don't picture a pen.
Zhibiiganaak.
I picture, like what you said, literally somebody making a marking.
Yeah.
So I really see what you mean. Same thing as Susan, where when am I going to use this word, like camel? But then to see the flexibility of how you can use those words. And you can do that in lots of languages, but it's just more interesting in Ojibwe.
Yeah, the first word you use was Zhibiiganaak. Zhibiiganaak. If you say Zhibiiganaak, what you're saying is, this is Zhibi. To stretch.
Okay.
Zhibi.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you say Zhibi, it means you're making a mark someplace.
Oh, say it again. GB versus Zhibi.
Zhibi.
Yeah.
Zhibi.
Uh,
Zhibi.
Okay. So what's the Ganaak part?
Ganaak is the Ganaak is the
Line.
line.
Okay.
Zhibiiganaak. It's the stick.
Okay.
You're making a mark with the stick.
Okay.
It's funny, some of the words the people are asking me in the reserve. One of the names of the people there was Patatagoos. There's a lot of words for Patatagoos. And the proper way to say Patatagoos is Bidatagons. Bidatagose. And so because people didn't know how to write it to sound like that, they wrote it to sound like Patatagoos. But the original way was the Bidatagose. And Bidatagose he was a fur trapper. That's why they called him that. There was one person they called him that, Bidatagose. He was a trapper. That's why he walked on the ice after it froze. Always walking on the ice. So that's what it means, walking on ice.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
He walks on the ice coming this way. And so that's how he got the word. They've tried all kinds of different ways to try to explain the name. And he says, well, it means the log is pointing this way on the ground. It means this and it means that. And unless you knew the origin of the word, why they called somebody that, and at what time they called them that, you didn't know what Bidatagos was, because they didn't know how to say Bidatagos. Then once you know Bidatagos, well, oh, he comes from a fur trapper family,
Mhm.
you know, and yeah.
I had a question about the Abinoojiinhs.
Abinoojiinhs, yeah.
So that's the baby that just sits there.
It,
So
the
in
word,
a cradle board or
uh,
something.
yes and no. Yes to a bit means
Mhm.
it just sits there. It just
Yeah.
lays a bit. A bit. That's why it's called a benoji, because it just lays there. A bit noji. A bit means it just stays there because it can't look out for itself right now because
Right.
he's very small. So we have to look after the baby. And in looking after the baby, being very busy looking after that baby, it's the second part. Noji's.
Yes.
Noji's. He just sits there, but he needs to be looked after, so he makes everybody busy.
Okay. So then with the twins,
Mhm.
they crawl and don't just sit. They make everybody busy too, probably
Yeah,
twice as busy.
Yeah, they are Abinoojiinhs. They are Abinoojiinhs, but
Okay.
there's two of them, so that makes them Niizhoodenhyak.
Mhm.
You're because
Join together.
because they're twins. You have to talk about both of them, both of those Benooji at the same time. You
Okay.
do not talk about twins as separate.
Mhm. So when a baby gets big enough to start wanting to crawl and roll and things like that, do they change from using Abinooji for them, even though they're under a year old? Or do they stay at Abinooji until they go to school?
Depending on your relationship with the baby, depending on the relationship that you have with that little person, you can even call, if you're a parent, you can call that Benooji a Benooji when he's 60 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, because especially in our ways as Anishinaabe people, we didn't do what the animals do, because they're like birds. Birds, they throw their young out of the nest, and the little one starts to fly away and he doesn't come back. You know, the foxes, they grow up in little dens, and they're thrown out of the den, and they go on their own in this world. When they're 5 or 6 years old, they don't come back again. We are very mean because we don't know how to let our kids grow and become their own people.
Mhm.
So animals are a lot kinder than we are. They will literally throw their babies out of the nest, and they know, because the animals are smarter than we are. Birds know. They will throw their young out the nest, because they know, as they're throwing the little babies out of the nest, they know that baby will fly. They just know that. That is how smart animals are, because the ability to fly, a little bird is born with that, because the ability to fly is embedded right into your DNA. Your parents flew for thousands of years. Your ancestors have been flying for thousands of years. So that knowledge is right into your bones and your being. So when a mother bird throws her little one out the nest, she knows that little bird will fly, because she knows that knowledge is embedded in that bird. And usually the bird flies, away it goes. And it's the same thing with the swimmers. They're thrown out of their home very early, because even adults today, some places, some countries, they throw their little babies right in the water.
Mhm.
And they throw it, and the little baby starts to swim. Away he goes. Sometimes they're a couple of weeks old. Away they go. It's embedded right into their DNA. But it took us a long time to find that out. that could happen. That's a really good question. Really good observation.
How do you say, like, are there defined words for stages in childhood? You know, we say infant, baby, toddler, blah, blah, blah. Is it defined like that in the language?
You could say Abinoojiinhs, you could say Wshtigwaanes, you could say Netaugit, you could say Bebiigwaapkaawn, but you're still describing the baby. Bebiigwaapkaawn.
I like that one.
He's running around,
Oh, that's a cute.
Yeah, he's running around.
Okay.
There's words
Yeah.
for young people like Shkiniqua,
Yeah.
you know, things like that, and daughter and son and
Yeah.
relative terms.
Meaning she just stepped out.
Just became a woman.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hey, I ever need you.
But
Very neat.
no,
You got an
I-
assistant.
Yeah.
I was part of the berry fast, not like last summer, so
Yeah.
I remember that.
Okay, that's neat, eh? Yeah. Yeah, they have these little ceremonies. Like me, I because of my grandpa's experience, I had a different experience in being raised.
Mhm.
Because my grandfather went to residential school when he was 5 years old, and he said, "There's no way you're going to have that happen to you." So I had a different experience. I didn't. They kept me out on a trap line till I was 7.
We better.
And also that kept me away from who there's going to be no truant officer way to hell out in the bush, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So they had to take me when I was 6 years old. They had to take me to residential school, but I fought so hard, and I fought so hard, and I was fighting. That they said, we don't want that baby, we don't want that young guy here at all. Get rid of that guy, don't ever let him come back. So I got to go to school, public school. I got to go to public school, and the government had to pay. My grandfather got lawyers and everything, and they had to put my money in trust till I was 21.
Mhm.
And they had to pay for my education. They had to pay for my dental, my medical needs and everything. My grandfather made all those arrangements through the courts.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was really something.
Probably wasn't happening too much, in those days.
No. It was well, it was against the law for anybody to have lawyers. Anishinaabe. It was against the law. Yeah. My grandfather went and got 2 lawyers.
Mhm.
And then they had to, the government had to leave me alone.
Mhm.
For all my life, I've been fighting the government, and so forth. Like sometimes Wshtigwaanes gets mad at me. White people got mad at me because I was fighting so hard. But I told them, I said, I fight the government because they are not being fair.
Mhm.
You should be fighting the government too, I told. Look what the government's doing to you guys. You know, they brought in taxes for the war, during the war. War has been over for many years. You're still paying for the war. You know, and that's the law. And my grandfather, when he had his business and everything, they told him they would try to close him down. And he says, "Why should I do that?" He said, "Well," he said, "this is the law, Mr. Bob." And my grandfather said, "Well, that's your law. That's not my law.
Mhm.
I have a different law,
Mhm.
and it's better than yours." And no, they tried to throw him in jail and everything. He used to be such an antagonizer that they used to throw him out of Bangkok. They used to throw him out of bad meetings because he didn't want to be told how to live by the government.
Fair enough.
He should have been Italian.
Oh, geez.
Italians have been fighting a government for years.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Was that to answer your question, Susan?
Yes, thank you.
Anything else?
Could you just explain again? So you said for the expression of camel, in the past, there were no insults, you said? People would not insult each other, but then after colonization,
I
it
don't.
became more it became more common, or did I misunderstand that?
Which one
Did I
was that?
misunderstand the word camel?
You're saying how if somebody called you a camel, it wasn't an insult. Your uncle or something was called a camel because he had a hump.
Oh, the humpback.
Mhm.
The people weren't insulted by a description of their being. When somebody described you, Josh, Mava, Nishnaabe, he's limping. He walks to the limp. We were not insulted by description of if you saw us, the description of what you saw when you saw us. People weren't insulted by that. If you would say somebody was chabez, if they were fat, you wouldn't say that they were insulting you because again, chabez, it means a different meaning in Ojibwe as it does in English. When you say somebody's big, you're saying it in a different way. It means something different. It doesn't mean fat. Somehow or other, the word fat has become undesirable in English. Maybe it was the time that it was said or so, because there was a time when fat was very, very. It was a big compliment to be fat a long time ago. It meant that you were rich when you were fat, and then you got slim, so people made fun of you because you were slim. And then it changed again when you became overweight again. It was a derogative term then, because a lot of our language is based on how acceptable our lifestyle was, and it's a same thing with this Bebiigwaapkaawn, Bebiigwaapkaawn is it's almost like a compliment. Okay.
Language.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
Can you say that word again?
Which one? Which word?
Bebiigwaapkaawn.
Bebiigwaapkaawn.
Oh, it's like a very like waddle.
Nasal sound.
Bebiigwaapkaawn.
Bebiigwaapkaawn. Yeah. It's the two that mentions the two house.
Yeah, it's the sounds. So there's certain sounds that are a bit harder to get out. And so I find the nasal sounds to read, I have a hard time remembering what it should sound like.
Oh, okay.
And also because you're a speaker and not a non-speaker trying to say it the way an English person would, you know?
Yeah.
It's adjusting the ear.
Yeah. It's well, that's a lot of times that's exactly why we're trying to like when Julia gets her business going there and everything, we'll be able to have room to be able to put the learners at a camp with us for 3 days straight.
Mm-hmm.
That way, that all you're hearing day in and day out is language, and then because you're hearing the language every day, and you're hearing it nothing else, your brain starts to recognize the Ojibwe language. Before then, when you hear Ojibwe, all you're hearing is gobble of words because your brain cannot understand. And when your brain starts to recognize the words, the words start to be able to be in your head, and there's a space in your brain that is put aside for that new language. Any new knowledge that you receive in your life, your brain puts together a side. It's like when you buy a whole bunch of new stuff, you have to get rid of new stuff.
Yeah.
And
Library.
yeah, and one of our ceremonies that we have, but we don't have them now, but I know of them. But you had to go through a ceremony a long time ago when you wanted something in your life. You would have to acknowledge that I'm going to get rid of this so that I can receive what's coming. I am going to let this go so that I can have room for this new thing that's coming to my life. You had to state what you're waiting for. Like it's to be where I am today, I had to get rid of a couple of relationships that weren't very good for my life. I got rid of those relationships because I knew that I was being sabotaged by a person that was very jealous. So when I changed my being, literally, all of a sudden new things started to happen. New people came into my life. A whole new system happened to me. Like I didn't know you before any of these things. I didn't know a whole bunch of people before any of these. Now, as a result of saying, okay, I'm going to make some room in my life, I'm going to go on with my life, all of a sudden it's replaced by the people I'm going to need in this new life. It's like even a relationship. You may be in a really bad relationship, but it's going to stay like that as long as you're fighting in that relationship. It's going to stay like, next thing you know, you're fighting because you want to be the winner of this argument. You want to stay in this relationship because you want him to suffer more than you're suffering. So you're fighting back and forth. All you have to do is stop fighting and let each other go. Then the new things will come into your life. They won't come into your life because there's people watching you, and they say, "Oh, I ain't going to go near that person because he smoke." But when your fighting stops, they say, "Oh, gee, that person. I know. I want to get to know that person." And that's how movement happens. I knew a friend of mine who was what do you call a gatherer of all kinds of things. There's a name for that now. They even got shows about it. But he had a trail from the door to the living room to the kitchen, but everything was piled up in
Orders.
he had the order. He used to have three freezers because he had hoarded food upon food upon food, and
No room for good in your life. If that's that's a good way to look at it.
when something happened to him, they had to empty out the whole house because the person coming in wanted new things. And so that's like me with me and my wife. Holy smoke! I say, come on now, geez. I said, I'd like to have a nice clean house, no junk all over the place, man. Yeah, well, I need that armchair, and I need this, and I need that. That's all.
Awesome.
Yeah. So yeah.
Very cool.
Hey,
I like these.
like these? You like arguments? Yeah.
Yes.
Did you do that just from sitting there?
I did this part.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Amy's pretty impressive in lots of ways. Not just language and reading.
Bye.
Thank you for coming.